to the Game Debate, a 10-minute discussion wherein Webb the Critical Android and Stefan JD will debate the merits or lack thereof of a video game they have both played. They each will receive exactly 3 minutes to present their opening arguments. Afterwards, they will receive a 1-minute rebuttal. Following the rebuttal period, they will both have 1 additional minute to issue their final thoughts. Debaters, to your positions.
Three-minute review. 3, 2, 1, go!
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the NES was released by Ultra Games, but it was actually published and developed by Konami. Ultra Games was just their subsidiary company, released more games in the United States at the time due to Nintendo's strict licensing requirements. At the time, the Turtles were incredibly popular. And unfortunately, I think this doomed the game, because if anybody mentions Ninja Turtles in like the context of thinking about the game and what it represented, they think of it being this incredibly difficult game that ends at level 2, essentially because of the dam. Ninja Turtles is no more difficult than Ninja Gaiden, Ghosts and Goblins. In fact, I think it's easier than those games when you compare it to it. So I think the fact that it's bashed for its difficulty level is unfair, especially considering other games like Castlevania. What makes this game fun is that it's one of the few turtle games that lets you be able to switch between the turtles at any point in time, and they do have different capabilities because of their weapons. Whether it be Leonardo's katana that has a good range in terms of verticality up and down, or in a medium attack speed, or Donatello, who ultimately will get the most use out of because his bow has an incredible range and does the most damage. Michelangelo and Raphael are mostly used kind of like for meat shields. You can use them to get through parts where you don't care about taking a lot of damage because you don't want Leonardo and Donatello to be hurt instead, so you throw them at it. This game does have tricky moments in it. There are some very precise jumps that have to be made at certain points in time, but it is completely learnable and doable. The one complaint that I really have about this title is that the enemies, I don't know where they came from, where some of these enemies came from, because you have like weird fireball monster men and eyeballs on legs and a lot of just weird things that don't show up in the comics, don't show up in the game, or don't show up in the cartoon. I think this is a victim of how sometimes the Japanese companies who weren't familiar with the source material had to just make shit up to fill it into the game. But overall, it's a short game that you can complete in a pretty quick time if you know what you're doing. And that's one of the harder things about this, is realizing that because it's an older game, you do have to learn it and practice it. But I do find that despite some of the difficulties that it has, the learning curve is just as steep, I guess, if you could say, if not even a little bit better than what you would see from Ghosts and Goblins or Ninja Gaiden, but the lack of infinite continues does make this game a bit more unforgiving than it should be. But you can still trick it and game it if you know what you're doing, by knowing enemy placement, by knowing how to navigate some of the maze-like levels, by finding energy and pizza and all that stuff. You can go ahead and make this game more enjoyable than people give it credit to. It's got a bad rap, but ultimately you can enjoy this Ninja Turtle game.
Back in the day, going to the video rental store, this was one of the few games that they had there. I think they had maybe 10, 12 games. They definitely had TMNT, the arcade version, but TMNT NES, the game I'm talking about, the one that came out in 1989, this game just tore me to bits as a kid. I could not get past the dam level, and everyone knows what I'm talking about. The surprising thing about this game and any NES game is that at some point you do want to take them on and try and beat them. And with an absurd level of difficulty for any game, that has never stopped people. And it has never stopped me, as certainly when I went through Batman NES, TMNT Arcade, all the other hard games, Dark Souls for a game today that people consider hard. I always took on the challenge. The reason being is because if you've already seen someone else can do it, then just go ahead and try it. So back in the day as a kid, I could not, for the life of me, get through this game. It was a weird game. I just kind of accepted everything in it. The chainsaw enemies, the top-down view, and then switching over into the sewers, which was very just weird for me back in the day, but at the end, I just wanted to see the turtles in action, and I just wanted to control them. That was enough. But as I got older, the thing that came over me was that I wanted to beat the shit out of this game. I wanted to kick its ass. And I went over to a friend's house one night, and I actually got past the dam level in my second try. And I thought, you know what? I could actually beat this game. So it's a good game. I have certainly gotten far into it, and it didn't take a lot of practice, honestly. You just have to learn to switch between your turtles, be conservative, use your weapons, learn enemy placement, as Webb said. And the box art, I actually have an original TMNT game on my shelf with the box art. That's issue 4 of TMNT Turtles. They were huge back then. They're still huge in my heart today, especially for the comic books, the original Mirage run. But in this video game, I actually think if people gave it a try, if they sat down and they tried to learn it, they would find out that it's a difficult game, but it's easily overcome with practice. I don't know what else to say about it other than the fact that it's not, just because a game is hard, especially NES hard, does not make it a bad game. Does it need some refinement? Just a little couple tweaks? Yes. Other than that, the music is phenomenal too. I play it in the shower. I yield the rest of my time.
Rebuttal.
I thank you for bringing up the subject of the music, because that is something I forgot to mention. The soundtrack on this is phenomenal. It is up to the standards of any other Konami game that came out during this time, whether it be the overworld music, the boss music, which is phenomenal, one of the best boss themes that you'll hear on the NES. I think that the aesthetic of this game, even though it's hindered by some of the weird enemy designs and where they came up with, it still has a great look and feel to it, especially from the overhead view to the side view. It gives the game a sense of exploration and depth. The worst part about this game is trying to get through the last level, where it does get unfair. The Technodrome, the final level, is incredibly unfair. The enemies there do a massive amount of damage. These spacemen with lasers are awful. So even though this game does require practice, it makes that practice hard to do with the lack of infinite continues. That's one thing that this game needs in order to be considered a classic. It's lacking it. I wish it had it.
I have to agree, too, that the aesthetic does stick to what I would think for the Turtles. They picked the right colors. Granted, the NES only had a certain amount of colors. The enemies at the end do get very ridiculously hard. I think they are based on the rock soldiers from the comic book. There's definitely other things in this game, like the Technodrome. There's April, there's Bebop and Rocksteady, there's Splinter, Shredder. All the little cutscenes they put in it, too, are also things that I appreciate, and they still look great today. The Technodrome itself, unfortunately, had to be sized down. It looks ridiculous. I still like it. I still like this game. If anyone is looking to play a challenging Turtles game, because there are a lot out there, but there are very few that are worth playing, in my opinion, this is one of them. Yield time.
Okay.
Final thoughts.
I really wish this game did not have the reputation that it did. The dam level is actually one of the easier levels in the game, when you really just get the practice down. But again, the lack of infinite continues really destroys that for you, so you can't just replay and practice things as much as possible. Do not beat this game for its ending. The ending is terrible. The AI on the final boss with Shredder is awful, and you get just a completely awful ending. You need to play this for the sake of challenging yourself, for the great soundtrack, and for the fact that it actually does have some pretty action-packed gameplay. And one of the few games, again, like I said, that allows you to change between the turtles, and it makes them feel different and in a tangible way that changes the way you play the game. Yield my time.